Hey guys, this is Blake here. I'm going to be reviewing Chronicle and The Woman in Black. Now with Chronicle, I really did not want to see this movie. I like found footage films, even though it's taken me a while to warm up to them. But I believe they should be reserved for horror films. Whether you want to go the pure found footage route like Paranormal Activity or The Blair Witch Project, or if you want to be a straight up mockumentary like Lake Mungo, I can enjoy a horror film as long as it's good. If they are found footage films, even the ones that weren't really that well received, like Apollo 18 and even The Devil Inside to a lesser extent, I respected to a point. At least they creep me out at times. But like, I don't want to see Project X, which is supposed to be a party comedy, which is found footage. It doesn't really appeal to me all that much, and so I didn't really think that they could do much with it in terms of the action genre either, which was what I thought Chronicle would be, and was to an extent. But the reason why I ended up going to check it out anyway is the reviews turned out to be really good, surprisingly good. And usually I don't put too much stock in what critics, especially the more mainstream ones, think, because usually they just don't appeal to my tastes. And when a movie like that gets good reviews, it probably means it's going to be more of a drama, but who knows. But I decided I'd go ahead and check it out, and it was really good. I was really impressed. The film does a great job at establishing its characters, making you like them or sympathize with them. Not all of them are perfect. You know, the main guy, for example, is kind of crazy and messed up from the beginning, and but you really grow to care for them, and then when they get into the cave or the hole in the ground where they encounter something that gives them psychic powers, it's really good at making you feel what they feel. So when they're all excited and thrilled, you're excited and thrilled with them. One thing that I really loved about this movie is that most movies that are like heavy on special effects don't do anymore, is that there's an emotional appeal there. Like, remember when the original 1970 Superman came out, and they made a big deal about "You Will See a Man Fly," and that was new at the time. So when Superman flies, people were like, "Oh shit, that's crazy." That is what I felt during this movie. So when they start flying or doing really crazy stuff, the special effects, I mean, they're not the greatest out there, but I thought they were good enough to where they were never distractingly bad or anything. But you really feel that this is happening, and you really are caught up in the moment with these characters. So like, the main scene was probably when they first learn how to fly, and they're up in the clouds and stuff like that. It was spectacular to watch because you felt like you were flying with them. And you don't see movies do that these days very much. Usually it's all CGI, good or bad. You never really have an emotional attachment to what's going on screen. And then when it comes to the ending, and where one character freaks out and starts going Akira on people's asses, it was really riveting and exciting and intense. It reminded me of Cloverfield, but without the annoying shaky camera work, and there's no monster. But just in terms of, helicopters being thrown all over the place, cars being thrown all over the place, and some of the camera work there is pretty unique, because you don't usually see, like, at one point a car drops and you have the first person perspective from that, and that was really cool. And it was just all in all very exciting, very riveting, but also very funny, heartwarming, and sad. And it was just one of those types of movies that really nails everything it wants to nail. The only fault with it, and this is actually I think what keeps it from being great, I think it's really good, is that it really struggles when it comes to connecting the second act and the third act. Pretty much when a character goes crazy, I never really bought why they went crazy. It seemed like what really started setting that up was very, very odd. I just didn't buy that. And it felt like the movie really wasn't sure how they wanted to go about it either. They knew that they wanted to go with it, but they just didn't know how to get there. So they just kind of rushed this one segment. Then they start focusing on another character who's going to be the actual good guy. And they bring in his past love interest as a new love interest. And it just, I don't know, it felt like they just didn't really know what to do. So they started becoming a little bit more conventional and cliched with it. But that just was the only problem I had with the film. I thought it was an all-around really good movie. Definitely check it out. Very, very surprising. Now, The Woman in Black was a movie that I really did want to see. I love the old Hammer films. The Curse of Frankenstein is one of my favorite horror films. It's not scary, but it has some really cool and chilling moments, and a surprisingly strong story for something that's probably been done way too many times. I love Horror of Dracula. The Mummy, I think it was just like Terror of the Mummy. That's probably the best mummy film out there. Christopher Lee's Mummy is the scariest mummy I've ever seen. And, most of these films that even when I don't feel they completely work like they want to, I still think they're pretty interesting. Like The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll and The Curse of the Werewolf. I don't think either of those are great movies, but they're interesting in just how they tackle the familiar subject material. So I love Hammer films, and I was thrilled to see that they came back. And they actually did a few more movies before this. Let Me In, which I didn't care for, but a lot of people did. And I think it was called The Resident, which I haven't seen, but I think the reviews of them are more negative. But this is their first old-school Hammer film. Takes place in the early 1900s. Usually Hammer films tend to take place in the Victorian age, but this one is not quite as far back. But same effect, really. A very gothic, old-school horror film, and I was thrilled to see that they were going back and doing that, because I think horror works so much better when it takes place in the past, because you don't have the problem of cell phones. There's a greater feeling of isolation, much more potential with set design and cinematography. The main reason why I loved the Wolfman remake so much was that it was a complete throwback to those old Hammer horror films. I love that setting, and unfortunately that movie didn't make enough money, so nobody really capitalized on that location. I mean, I think the main problem is that they just cost too much, and horror films are usually more low-budgeted affairs. So, how good is The Woman in Black? I thought it was good, but not great. What I like, it's in a way I'm going to be comparing it to Insidious probably a fair amount. I like its execution, but I don't especially like the story that it came from. I haven't read the book or the play or whatever it's based on, but I'm just talking about the script in general here. I thought it was really creepy. They do a great job at recreating what we loved about the old Hammer films. There's a lot of detail to set design. The exteriors were great. The interiors of the mansion was great. I love the rotted look of it. I like how it takes place in an isolated village, but the mansion isn't in itself, is like an isolated little island outside of the village, and a great location. Made for some great cinematography. I love the use of fog. I think fog is always a very effective tool in horror films. Just it has a very chilling atmosphere, and but it also takes a lot of the more modern day style of horror, like the rapid fire scares and the jump scares and the boo scares, and I thought they worked pretty well. I was into it. There was maybe only one or two scenes where I felt the scare completely backfired and became unintentionally funny. But for the most part, when it wanted me to jump, I jumped. But my favorite scares were like the build-up scares. I love it when he looks into the window and there's like this weird face just staring at him from up there. That kind of stuff really creeped me out. My favorite scene was probably when he's looking outside at night and it's storming, and then some figure starts crawling out of the marsh and starts walking towards the house, and somebody's trying to get in and the dog's growling. I love that kind of shit, and I thought this movie did a great job at just being freaky and uniquely so because of its location. Unfortunately, all of that is sort of undermined by the fact that at its core, it is a very, very conventional ghost film. Everything that you expect to happen will happen, and you almost feel like you've seen this plot before, because the whole premise is this old dead lady is haunting the villagers' children because of her own dead child, so she's just doing it as revenge. And they don't really explain that, I think, well enough, but it seems like we've seen that whole concept many times before, and that's really it. This is pretty much the same type of movie you've seen before. It just has a very unique execution, primarily because of its location. So just like Insidious, where I felt Insidious was really a conventional ghost story, but I liked its execution, so I liked that movie. And this is, I think, is the same kind of thing. So if you want to read my written review of The Woman in Black, just check the link in my description. I didn't do a written review of Chronicle. I just didn't feel like I had a whole lot to say about it. I would recommend Chronicle to definitely everybody because I think it was really good, good enough to warrant a theatrical viewing. And I'd recommend The Woman in Black to all fans of old school Hammer films or ghost films in general. If you like horror films, there's no reason you should avoid it. At the absolute worst, wait till DVD. But I thought it was worth watching in theaters. I really enjoyed both of these movies. I probably would say the Chronicle is a little bit better, especially considering I was more surprised by it, but that's really all I have to say. So I'll see you guys hopefully later in the week with the new Critiquing the Critics episode.